there, it's Jacques from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. So this is a very exciting edition. Now, at the time of recording this, we've already seen the first day of Pro Tour Kaladesh, so today they'll be starting day 2, and we've already seen a lot of the decks that have made a pretty big impact on Standard, and we talk about this every season. New set comes out, there's a lot of hype over certain cards, then of course there's the Star City Games Open, and we start to see what Standard's going to look like, but then it's the Pro Tour that really captures people's attention and really drives these card prices. So just like every other season, you're going to see that this time around. There's a lot of movement in Standard, a lot of big stories to talk about there. So we're going to jump into that first. Now, quickly, before we get started, if you check out the description below, you're going to see a link that goes to our Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases through any of those links, a small percentage comes back to help the channel, and as always, that's very, very appreciated. Now, as always, all the cards that are featured here in the Market Watch are going to be available through links on the Amazon affiliate store. So if you see anything here, especially cards that are going up very quickly or down very quickly, sometimes you can get some deals in the big marketplaces. So definitely check those out. And when you go in, click on the links, because sometimes the price is actually lower than what's listed on the front of the link. You can find other sellers selling it much cheaper, so keep that in mind. All right, having said that, let's jump into Standard, because there's a lot to talk about here. It's pretty crazy. Now we're going to talk about the cards that lost value first, and there's not a lot of huge surprises here. Basically what you're going to see is two things. You're going to see cards that were really maybe overhyped during the pre-release that are still coming down, and you're also going to see some cards that were big parts of the past Standard that just haven't quite panned out, at least to the same degree, in the current Standard. So let's get started with number 5, and that's Collective Defiance, down 26 cents to $4.69. Not a huge change here, but I will say this: the Collective Rare cycle from Eldritch Moon, if you don't have play sets of those, I would pick them up. I mean, they're not super expensive. The most expensive ones are the black and red, and you can pick those up still for $4 to $5 pretty easily. And I do think at any given time in Standard that these cards could come into play for certain decks. There's just a ton of versatility there. They're not as powerful as the command cycle that we're used to from the previous Standard. However, they're reminiscent, and if you don't have the command cycle available, this is another option. And it's not bad. It's not a bad option for Standard. So if you can get them cheap, I would pick them up. Coming in number 4 is Chandra Flamecaller, down 27 cents to $8.11. Now, this card is a little surprising to me that it's as low as it is. Now, granted, it's not seeing the play it was seeing. There was a point where this was actually the most valuable card in Oath of the Gatewatch, even above Kalatos, which is crazy to think now. But this card, being a 6 casting cost card, it has seen its share of play, and it did have its day, but starting to fall out of favor a little bit as decks are getting a little more aggressive and faster with the release of Kaladesh. Now, this card still has a place, I think, with casual players or even Commander and some cubes. So if you want to grab a copy of this card, or maybe you just want to pick up a foil, this is probably not a bad time to do so. This card is very low, and there's a chance it could see some more play. It's still got a long Standard life ahead of it. Coming in number 3 is Archangel Avacyn, down 33 cents to $17.80. Again, not a huge drop here, kind of staying stable for the most part, Avacyn is. Now, again, she's still seeing play, just not in the numbers that she was seeing originally, as the meta is shifting now towards more control style decks and less aggressive decks. And it's still a good card, much like the last card we saw. If you want to pick one of these up, you can get your hands on one for $10, $15, maybe for a cube or for Commander. You know, they might be able to find a deal there. Coming in number 2 is Nissa Vital Force, down 48 cents to $16.14. Now, this is a card that was maybe priced a little bit high coming out of pre-release. It's been steadily dropping since then. It hasn't really kind of made the big splash that some people thought it would. I do think, again, it is a good card, though, and it does have a long time to go in Standard. So, again, if you can get these cheap for $10, $12 or something like that, might not be a bad idea to pick them up. And finally, number 1, Chandra Torch of Defiance, down $1.23 this week to $32. And here we are now. We got through the first day of the Pro Tour, and she still hasn't made that splash or kind of grabbed the attention of players, which is very sad in a way, because I think this is a very, very good card. It just hasn't really found a home yet in Standard. Having said that, don't spend $32 for this card at this point. It hasn't started to bottom out yet, but I think that's just because people are just more focused on what cards they need to pick up this weekend as opposed to what they're trying to sell. But I think what's going to happen is people are going to start selling their Chandras for $25, $30 in order to pick up the cards we're going to see on the next list, which are the real hot cards right now due to the Pro Tour. I will say this about Chandra, though. She is a fantastic card, and someone's going to find a place for her at some point. Now, she's got a long life left in Standard. There will be a deck that is going to showcase what she can do at some point. I have no doubt. But watch out for this one. This card's going to continue to drop this week, I think, pretty heavily. All right, let's move into the cards that are hot this weekend in Standard. And here's the cards that really made a splash in the meta for the most part. Coming in number 5 is Electrostatic Pummeler, up $4.35 to $5. Now, if you bought this card last weekend, it would have only been a few cents. This weekend, already up to $5. You might be able to find a deal, though, as this is a card that's climbing very quickly. You might be able to get it before some, especially big vendors, realize that it's gone up in value. But I will say this about the card. I played it in Limited last weekend, and it is awesome. I mean, whenever you can double stuff, it's very powerful. As far as Standard goes, this card is part of a Gruul beatdown deck, and as you can imagine, just pumping this thing and then letting it double itself once or twice can be pretty crazy. The deck that is really being featured in the Pro Tour, a lot of folks are playing it, Willie Adel being one of them, and it looks incredible. It looks like a lot of fun, just old classic style beatdown cards, and very, very powerful. It feels a little bit like an Infect style deck. Of course, it's not using poison counters, it's just hitting you with a lot of damage really fast, but it has that kind of feel to it. Really cool deck. Coming in number 4 is Panharmonicon, up $6.11 to $8.92. Now, this is one of the cards that's featured in a Colossus style deck, and this deck's actually interesting. As far as numbers go, it's not one of the decks that's probably one of the more common ones compared to some of the others that we've seen. However, it does look very powerful with the people that are playing it. It's a little more complicated than some decks, I would say. Louis Scott Vargas has said that if he was playing the Pro Tour, of course he's doing coverage now, that this probably would have been the deck that he would have chosen. It is maybe his favorite deck, which makes sense because there's a lot of moving parts to this deck. It seems really cool. Basically, the idea is you're just playing a lot of artifacts to get to the point where you can play Colossus and Elder Deep Fiend, and that's kind of the combo where you can just go ahead and tap down your opponent's creatures, attack in with a Colossus, and the other cards are really support cards to help you get to that point, and this being one of the major ones. Coming in number 3 is Metallurgic Summonings, up $8.75 to $10.99. This one's kind of funny because a few days ago I opened a booster box, and I opened this in a pack and kind of said, okay, this is the Commander Mythic of the set, kind of tossed it aside, and here we are a few days later, and it spiked pretty big. Now, this is a little different than the other cards we've looked at today. This card has not spiked due to play at the Pro Tour. This actually spiked because MTG Goldfish did a budget deck build of this, and it caught a lot of people's attention. It was a really cool deck, and basically it was mostly an Izzet deck, had a little splash of green in it though, and it was a spells deck, had things like Part the Water Valve to keep your momentum, and then it took all your spells you were playing and just found value out of them with this being on the battlefield. Really cool idea, and I think a lot of people went out to try to build that deck, and considering this was the new mythic out of the deck, this card saw the biggest spike. Now, having said that, because it hasn't seen like a big showing of the Pro Tour or anything, this will probably start to come down pretty quick. So be careful this weekend. I probably wouldn't want to spend $10, $11 on this card. I think that another week it will start going back down again as players that wanted to build this budget deck get their pieces together, or else maybe just move on to another deck they saw at the Pro Tour. Coming in number 2, Torrential Gear Hulk, up $11.55 to $20. Now, this is the big Gear Hulk of the weekend at the Pro Tour. It's showing up in a lot of places. As you can imagine, if you have a control deck with blue in it, you're probably playing this card, right? And that's what's going on. That's what we're seeing. Now, this one and the green Gear Hulk are the two that are probably getting the most play at the Pro Tour right now, but the green one already was kind of expensive because of the fact that we've already saw what it could do at the Star City Games Open. It was pretty big there, but the green one is seeing play in the Beatdown Gruul deck, as you can imagine. This one's seeing play in a few different decks. very, very big spike this weekend, and I don't think it's going to be coming back down anytime soon. I think this card will probably be at least $30 before the week's over. So watch this one. If you haven't picked them up, you might have to bite the bullet, especially if you're planning on playing some Control this season. Now, long term, though, keep in mind a lot of Kaladesh packs are going to be opened over the next few months. So eventually, after the hype of the Pro Tour wears off, this card will settle back down again. But right now, it's definitely going to climb pretty fast. And coming in number 1 is Aetherworks Marvel, up $11.85 to $20 as well. Again, another mythic from Kaladesh, and this card is part of, basically, I don't want to call it a combo deck. It kind of feels a little bit like a combo deck, but the idea is you're just getting tons of energy and you're putting it into this as the payoff, and you're hitting an Emrakul, and that's what you're doing. And it's a really cool deck, obviously, and it's seeing tons of play at the Pro Tour. It's funny because as soon as this card was revealed, when it was previewed, I think that was the first thing I said when I saw it. I was like, wow, if you could consistently hit an Emrakul, this seems pretty good. Well, that's basically what this deck's trying to do. And this is going to be, I think, one of the big decks to come out of the Pro Tour. I have no doubt we're going to see at least a copy. I would say 2 to 3 copies in the top 8. And I guess we'll see how that pans out over the next couple days, but that would be my guess for this one. So again, another card that's in the spotlight. It's going to continue to spike, but like I said, much like the last card, be wary because a lot of packs are going to be open in the next few months until the next set comes out towards the end of January. So because of that, this won't hold a super high value long term. Again, this is one of those cards, if you need it this weekend to build a deck, you're going to bite the bullet and do it. But if you can wait until the Pro Tour hype subsides a little bit. All right, let's move on to Modern. Now, Modern is obviously going to be a lot slower this week because all the attention's on Standard, but there's a couple interesting things to talk about. So let's jump in. As far as cards that lost value, let's just go through these pretty fast because there's nothing super interesting here. It's mostly normal stabilization. Coming in number 5, Crucible of Worlds, 5th Dawn Edition, down 269 to 59.28. Fan favorite card, hopefully gets a reprint, Modern Masters 2017. Through the Breach, down 279 to 41.99. This actually spiked again recently, not unnaturally. It was just because it was seeing a lot of play at the time. So this is just normal stabilization. Coming in number 3, Verdict Catacombs, down 373 to 71.18. Fetch lands, enemy color fetch lands. We need a reprint. And I will say this quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I really don't think we're going to see them in Modern Masters 2017. I mean, if we do, cool. It's another way to get them into the market. But I feel like they're going to hold these for a standard set that maybe just needs an extra hook to it in the future. Cons. Now, Cons was a perfect example. That was a set that had the allied colored fetch lands featured. And it was also a set that Wizards didn't have a whole lot of confidence that it had a hook. They knew it had the Warlord theme. They knew it had the Wedge theme. They didn't think that was enough because they hadn't built into the Dragon theme yet. So they went ahead and put the fetch lands in there. And I think that's what's going to eventually happen with the enemy colored fetch lands. We're going to go to a new plane. Now, Kaladesh didn't need something like this because they had the energy hook, they had the vehicles hook. But eventually we're going to go to a plane that's just doing more classic Magic. And they're going to want some sort of a hook to get people's attention. I think that's when we'll see these cards. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon because I do think, again, we just had fetch lands in Standard. They're going to want to put some time between that Standard environment and the next one. So it's going to be a while, unfortunately. That's my thought anyway. I hope I'm wrong about that, but that's my thought. But when they do finally get reprinted, I mean, these cards will come down quite a bit, much like we saw from the Onslaught fetch lands, right? So that's all I'm going to say about it, and let's move on. All right, coming in at number 2, Tarmogoyf Future Sight version, down 426 to 157.12. This one's coming down quite a bit. Tarmogoyf's very soft right now. You can pick up the reprint versions of this at about $130, $135 at this point. So this one is starting to slowly slip to fall more in line with those. Although I do think this one will always be the higher priced one. It just seems to be the most popular one in at least recent months. Coming in number 1 is Noble High Conflux version, down $5.80 to $60.54. This saw a huge spike about a month or month and a half ago, and it got up to like $75. It did feel like a little bit of an unnatural spike. However, this card sees play everywhere. And yeah, you know, $60 is probably more of a fair price. Maybe 50 to 60 is more of a fair price for this card. And that's fine for right now. Hopefully, again, it will be reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. All right, let's look at the cards that are hot right now in Modern. There's a couple interesting things here. Coming in number 5, we have Seedborn Muse, up 31 cents to 22.51. I mean, not a huge increase by any means here, and you're going to notice that all the cards this week in Modern aren't really going up that much. But this is an interesting indicator that there is a deck out there now. It hasn't made a big splash or anything or won any tournaments, or I don't even know if it's top 8 at any major tournaments at this point. But there is a deck that's kind of a control deck that tries to keep your opponent's lands tapped and allows you to untap yours. This is a key component of it, and this is a card that's already a casual favorite, so it's already kind of got a nice price tag to it. But it remains to be seen if that deck pans out in Modern. Just something to keep an eye on. Coming in number 4 is Sakura Tribe Scout, up 41 cents to $1.99. Again, not a huge increase, but it is a big percentage increase based off the value of this card. This is a common. It has seen play in Pauper, so that's something interesting to note, and some of that may be driving this a little bit. It's also in Modern in a kind of a different version of an amulet deck than what you normally see, so it's a little bit of a fringe card, but at the same time, you can't ignore the fact that it has a huge percentage increase this week. So keep an eye on this one. Coming in number 3 is Tarmogoyf Modern Masters version, up 49 cents to $133.35, and just normal price stabilization here. Number 2 is Brushland, 10th edition version, up $1.13 to $15.81. Now, these Brushlands have all been dropping over the last month or so it's interesting to see this one start to go back up. I think, again, this is the most aesthetically pleasing version of the card, so I do think this one long-term will probably hold its value the best, and I think once it started to come down, maybe some players just kind of jumped on and just thought we'll pick up some copies of it. I don't think this is going to start going up again or anything like that. I think, again, it will probably continue to decline. But at least it saw a small jump this week. Coming in number 1, 9th edition Blood Moon, up $1.33 to $43.99. So in a week where the biggest jump in Modern is going to be $1.33, odds are it's going to be a card that's just a staple, and that's exactly what you're looking at right here. All right, let's move on to Legacy. Now, before we get started, I want to pose a question to you all. Hopefully you can get me an answer in the comments below. But we talked a little bit in the comments last weekend about the Legacy portion of the video. And a lot of times it is a little repetitive. Now that Eternal Masters has kind of come and gone, Legacy has stabilized a little bit. It hasn't changed quite as much from week to week. So some folks were curious as to if it was something that we still wanted to include in the video, or if we wanted to only bring it up at times where maybe things were happening or changing, just to make the video a little bit shorter. Other folks said, you know what, I like to follow Legacy and I like it to be there. So here's my thought. There's a few different ways we could go about this. One, we could leave it as is, and I can continue to talk Legacy every week. Secondly, I can cut the Legacy portion out, have a shorter video, but only talk about things that are relevant, or just when they become relevant, go back to it. Or another option would be to do a separate video. The only thing with that is, though, honestly, I don't know if there's enough content to just do Legacy in a separate video. So it probably wouldn't be something I do weekly, but maybe just periodically in that case. Or finally, another option is we could make the third segment maybe a rotating segment. For example, one week we talked about Legacy, next week we talked about Vintage, next week we talk about Pauper, and then maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks we get back to Legacy and we talk about different things. The downside of that being, again, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of changes, even monthly, to things like Vintage or Pauper. Those are a little more static formats as well. So those are just some thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you'd prefer, and I'd like to hear that feedback for going forward. Having said that, let's get to the Legacy stuff. Cards that lost value this week. Coming in at number 5, Serendipity Freet from Arabian Nights, down 1461 to 148.46. This card spiked a couple months ago or so, and this is just an interesting card. It's not a reserve list card. Obviously, it just saw a reprint in Eternal Masters, so if you want a cheaper version of this card, you can pick up the Eternal Masters version, or if you want an interesting variant of it, you can pick up the revised version, which is actually a misprint, but it looks kind of cool. So you can get those very, very cheap. The reason this card holds its value is because it's rare, and collectors that are looking for the original version, and let's face it, I mean, it's unique. The Arabian Nights unique art and version of this card is something that collectors are interested in. Now, having said that, this potentially has also been the victim of buyout in the past, and that has led to spiking of this card. Also, old school players need to get the oldest version of the card, so there is a market out there for it, but if you just need to pick up a copy of this for your cube or something, there's cheaper ways to do it. Coming in number 4 is Living Plain, down 1638 to 5034. Another card that spiked a few weeks back, probably at least a mini buyout, starting to come down now. Coming in number 3, this is the revised Underground Sea, down 2129 to 320. Again, a card that spiked not too long ago, just starting to stabilize. Coming in number 2, Tundra Unlimited, down 2604 to 385.91, normal for this card. And finally, coming in number 1, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, down 79.95 to 1139.05. Now, this is actually the lowest I've seen this card for a while, so it's interesting to see if this is just normal back and forth, or if this is going to continue to drop. We'll have to keep an eye on it. All right, let's look at the cards that gained value this week. Coming in number 5, City of Brass, up 1657 to 140.78. Almost the same story as Surrender to Be Freed here. The original version is cool. It's definitely something collectors are drawn to. It has been a victim of a buyout in the past, but if you want a cheaper version of the card, you can get the Modern Masters version. Looks amazing, looks great, and definitely more affordable for a cube or what have you. Coming in number 4, All Hallows Eve, up $19.10 to $120. This is obviously the target of a buyout, and let's face it, I mean, this card doesn't see a whole lot of play. It's closing in on Halloween time. This card has spiked dramatically over the last 2 weeks. Kind of put the pieces together. Someone's buying it out for no other reason than, I mean, it's an old rare card, and hey, why not, right? It's the season. It's close to Halloween. Let's just do it. And that's what's happening here. So this will come back down, no doubt. However, I will say this about this card. I mean, look at the flavor here. I mean, All Hallows Eve with the jack-o'-lantern, the ghost, the gargoyle, what have you on the art. And it's also Christopher Rush art, which is very important. I think this card isn't going to crash as hard as maybe some of the other buyouts that don't see the same amount of play. Between the Christopher Rush art and the fact that it's a real-world reference, and I talked about this a little bit last week, that they stopped really early on doing real-world references in Magic. So when you find cards like this, they're kind of cool, right? So I do think there is a certain collector is going to gravitate towards this. So even though I do think the price will eventually go down, I don't know if it'll go down all that much. Coming in number 2, Nether Void, and this is down 27.53 to 299.99. This saw a huge spike not that long ago, and it looked like it was a victim of a buyout. It started to come back down, and now it's going up again. So I don't know if this is a second buyout or if this is just stabilization after the drop from the buyout. So we'll have to keep an eye on this one. Coming in number 2 is Tropical Island Unlimited version, and this is up 31.59 to 389.90. And finally, number 1 is Unlimited Bayou, up $43 to $284.99. Actually, a pretty big jump for that card. That feels more than just normal stabilization. All right, having said that, that is the market watch for this week. So I will say this, enjoy the Pro Tour. We'll keep an eye out on what hits the top 8 this weekend, because again, the decks that hit the top 8 will probably continue to see a nice growth pattern in their cards. So keep that in mind, but also keep in mind that Kaladesh packs are going to be opened quite a bit between now and the end of January. So be really careful about overpaying. Don't overpay for anything based off Pro Tour hype. Things will stabilize in a couple weeks, I promise. And also the metagame will continue to shift and change over the next few weeks. So it'll be interesting to watch. So until then, hey, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality content for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.